I've been a nurse for a year. I don't want to get emotional, but it is emotional because I've always wanted to be a nurse ever since I was a little girl. If I haven't told this story already, I was just called to nursing. I really believe that God called me to nursing. I just would always tell my mom that I wanted to be a baby nurse, not knowing what that even meant. I also have a picture from a diary entry when I was about 8 years old where I said that I wanted to be a baby nurse. I think it's always been a part of me. I'm a firm believer that nursing is a lifestyle. Remy agrees. I'm just so grateful to be living out my dream. I'm grateful to call myself a nurse and to have a job where I feel fulfilled, I'm secure, and I'm learning every single day. Although it's the hardest thing that I have ever done, I am really, really proud of how far I've come this past year, and I'm so excited for all of the newness that I still have yet to experience. I wanted to share 10 things that I've learned in my first year as a nurse. Some of it will be specific to labor and delivery, and I'm just gonna kind of talk through it and even give some advice along with it for any new nurses or anybody coming to labor and delivery. The first thing, it makes such a huge difference to sit down with my patients and talk to them about the plan of care and how that plan may change. Something I started doing pretty early on in my practice because I love educating my patients, and I also just observed that it wasn't always being done, and it did make a difference. It eased my patient's anxiety, and it also helped establish a level of trust between us because it's very scary to be in the hospital. And although my patients are at the hospital more often than not to have a baby in labor and delivery, it's still very nerve-wracking not knowing what's going on, especially if it's your first baby. So I always sit down with my patients. I pull up a stool or a chair and just talk to them face to face. And I think that it also just shows a little level of humanity because it's not so robotic and you're not just like doing these tasks and administering this medication without really explaining why. So yeah, I think it not only helps the patient, but it also helps you because you're talking through some education, which is reminding you why you're doing what you're doing. And it's also just making your patients feel better. A common thing that you can hear in labor and delivery is that you can never trust a multip. A multip is a mother who's had multiple babies already. But I will say, never trust a primip, which is a first-time mom, because I've had first-time moms go faster than multips on me, and if you know, you know. Something that helped me a lot in my first year as a new grad was to remember that everyone was once new and nobody knows everything. So ask the question, no matter how small it is. I remember when I first ever put in an order for labetalol, I asked for a little step-by-step because it helps me a lot to have someone walk me through it as I'm doing it. That's just how I best learn. But just ask the question. No question is too dumb. No question is too small. I think we should all encourage this type of mentality and hospital culture because things can get pretty repetitive, especially in labor and delivery where we only have like a few medications and a few different procedures. So although every patient and every baby and every situation can vary, for the most part, there is kind of like an order to things. So never be afraid to ask because safety is your number one priority. And in labor and delivery, we technically have two patients. There are two lives that we're making sure are okay, mom and baby. So always speak up. And if anybody ever makes you feel bad for asking a question, that says a lot more about them than it does about you. And you just have to remember that you always want to do the right thing. And if you're just in your head about it and no one's making you feel some type of way, just retrain your mind to think that you never want to be sorry for making a mistake simply because you didn't ask. And I guarantee you there will always be an answer. So ask the question. In labor and delivery, we often have charting that's every 30 minutes, which is pretty intense. Charting is half the job. So something that helps me is to just catch up on your charting at the top of the hour. That helps you not get super overwhelmed with like running back to the computer every 15 to 30 minutes to chart something, but it also gives you time in between charting to work on your patient and cluster your care before you sit down to chart. And it's something that I'm learning as I'm learning time management as a new nurse. Ask for a second opinion or maybe even a third opinion. And for me in labor and delivery, this is specific to either Pitocin titration or your strip. Some strips are just really tricky and look a little funny. Sometimes you're just not sure what you're seeing. And again, we have 2 lives in our hands and you never want to make a mistake just because you didn't ask. And it's always really, for me, comforting to go to another nurse that I trust. My first go-to person is always my charge nurse, but it could even just be someone sitting next to you that's charting, like, hey, do you mind just looking at this? It looks a little bit funny to me. What do you think? It's super simple. It shows that you care. And again, you're asking questions that are going to help you with your practice because, like I said, things can get a little bit repetitive and charting is half the job. This next one is definitely a little bit more of a luxury. It's not a necessity by any means, but I've noticed that when I have my Apple Watch on shift, it helps me so much. In labor and delivery, we often have to call out times, whether it's the delivery of a baby or the time of artificial rupture or any other procedure where we need the exact time for charting. It has helped me so much because I don't have to worry about looking up at the clock in the room or looking at the computer screen. Sometimes you're not by the computer screen. You have your Apple Watch right here on your wrist, and especially when you're assisting with a procedure or performing a skill, you can just look right at your wrist and it helps so much. It also helps me with setting timers. It's helped me before. I've made a mental note and then I set an alarm just in case, and the alarm definitely saves me and reminds me. This is something that I'm still learning, but that I've definitely improved on, and that is to speak up to offer a new intervention or a new idea. This pertains specifically to providers and, giving recommendations to providers, because there have been times where I've offered maybe a different position for pushing, like closed knee pushing to help open up the pelvic outlet, particularly in women that have small pelvic outlets and have been struggling in our typical knees apart lithotomy position. It's just a great way to advocate for your patient and show your provider that, hey, I have ideas and I would love for you to be open to trying this, because there's no perfect recipe, and sometimes we do have to try different things in labor and delivery to get the outcome that we want. This is a little bit harder for me to admit, but cervical exams are still super tricky for me, and I have heard from when I first started that it takes a minimum of about 2 years to feel comfortable in labor and delivery, and cervical exams being subjective can be tricky within itself because everyone's fingers are different, and I'm much more comfortable with dilation and station than I am effacement. That's the part that I still need some more practice with. But if you're a labor and delivery nurse struggling with your cervical exams, just think the more practice, the better. I always, if I'm uneasy, like to have someone check behind me. And if you want to get even more practice, ask for other nurses to allow you to check their patients behind them as well, just so you can see what you're feeling compared to what their exam was. I think that's super helpful. Something else that I really love to implement in my practice is the power of physical touch. Now, there will always be exceptions to this because some people don't like being touched, but also you have to be aware and acknowledge that some people do come from walks of life where they've experienced trauma, which is why consent is so important. And it's super simple to just ask your patient, is it okay if I touch you, even if it's not for a nursing skill or procedure. An example is I really love to hold my patient's hand and kind of caress them when they're experiencing maybe an uncomfortable procedure, or even just to empower and encourage them when they're pushing. Sometimes I like to do this even when I'm meeting them for the first time and talking through an introductory kind of plan of care with them, like I mentioned before. It's just like a little bit more humane to me, and I personally love physical touch and affection because I know that it can really ease anxiety. Again, it can be really, really nerve-wracking to be in labor and delivery. And one place where I feel like this is really helpful is when patients are receiving their epidural or spinal anesthesia, because it's a very, very strange sensation, especially for first-time moms who have no idea what to expect. And a lot of times they tell me that it's very soothing and comforting, and they really appreciate it. So don't underestimate touch when you wouldn't typically think to use like that sense. And the last and probably favorite thing that I've learned being a labor and delivery nurse is that it never gets old to watch a baby be born, especially if the mom has had a very difficult and long labor, especially for moms who are having a rainbow baby. There is just nothing like it. The energy in the room is incredible, and it's a moment in their lives that they will never forget. And babies are just so cute, and it's so fun to be a nurse. If you can't tell by this video or any other videos that you've seen, I truly love what I do, and I don't take it for granted. And I'm just so blessed that I can help bring life into this world and make this experience as pleasant as possible.